this is such a precious gift we have to create music, and I felt like what I did with that should be something meaningful and thoughtful. I love nothing more than to explore the kind of the sonic landscapes of the worlds that I create when I write the songs.
Running through the forest with my feet bare down. The light is gold, I wear your crown. Running through the forest to a heartbeat count. I'm wild and free, I'm with you now. On the left, on the left, on the left. Standing like I'm God, the light falls under it.
Hi there, I'm Phildel and I am a music artist.
And in the blue moon, I'll still wonder it.
My early relationship with music was a little unusual in that I discovered my passion for music really early on and became really obsessed with playing my little toy piano. It was probably the one thing that brought me the most happiness in my life. And then when I got to about 7 years of age, my parents divorced and my mother remarried a strict religious man who believed that music was the work of the devil, along with basically all forms of entertainment. So all of that was cleansed from the house. And I lived for the next decade without music in my life. So that was really, really difficult, or at least at home. So it wasn't in my life at home. But luckily, when I went to school, I could kind of spend time with the school piano and just take those moments to reconnect with that passion that I discovered earlier. And then when I got to the age of 17, left home and finally managed to embark on really developing my musical skills and putting a music career together step by step. I was quite obsessive in my relationship with music. But the weird thing was, see, when you're growing up and you have music at home, you learn how to look for music in the wider world. You learn like how a record store is put together and how to index things that you're trying to find, but I didn't have any of those. So I used to listen to the radio loads. And I remember once wanting to buy, I think it was my first album. I was like, I'm gonna get this musical album. Oh no, sorry, it was a single. That's right. I'd heard a single on the radio. It was No Diggity. And I wanted to buy it from the shop and I got to the shop and I couldn't figure out how to find it, or like suddenly there was like thousands of these CDs everywhere. I was too shy to ask the staff. So finally I got to the place and I just ended up buying the Blackstreet album. I couldn't figure out that singles were in a separate area, so there's all these little things that came up that I was trying to navigate. But via the radio, I managed to hear loads and loads of great music, so I focused on that for a long time. Yeah. When I was back in the school music room, like the feeling of being present with the piano again after so much silence and restriction around music felt really sacred. Like it felt like a spiritual moment. And when I'd play the first note, just the sound of the notes cutting through the silence, like breaking the silence, always felt so powerful to me. And I think I took from that, like, this is such a precious gift we have to create music. And I felt like what I did with that should be something meaningful and thoughtful. And from there, I don't know, I suppose like I would always feel a lot of emotion coming up. It became like a therapy, like where I would turn for my therapy to help me get through a really hard decade. And so, yeah, I think that's where it started to become a cathartic process, and it never really stopped. Like I still go to the piano when I'm feeling a really strong emotion and things just flow. Yeah, it's been a real pillar of stability and strength over the years. I feel like the world outside is a really separate thing from the world of creating and the kind of internal world there. I put the music out. I must say that I'm somewhat detached from the process. I release the music. I really appreciate the listeners I have. They get in touch with really kind words. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as invested in that whole process as I am in the making of the music. There's no question. Like, if I think a song is going to take me 8 to 10 years to complete, I'll put that time in, and I've done that before. And there's no sense of like, oh, I've got to keep releasing this music for people. To me, that is so secondary to the importance of the creative process. Music is still an incredible escape for me, and I love nothing more than to explore the kind of the sonic landscapes of the worlds that I create when I write the songs. I really enjoy kind of painting atmospheric spaces with instrumentation, and then having like the emotive elements of the songs coming out through the lyrics. But as for like what that landscape will be, often I'll have a sense of the imagery in my mind for like quite a long time, for maybe like a year or two before I sit down and think, yeah, I feel like I know this world enough now to really create it as a piece of art. And yeah, so sometimes it works that way. Often I do just let those fragments kind of come up from, I guess it's some area of the unconscious, either those imageries or sometimes it's a phrase or just like one short melodic fragment with some lyrics. And those will like come back and revisit my mind like frequently over a few months to a couple of years. And yeah, finally, it's weird, it takes such a long time for me to feel ready, like this is the moment where I write the song about those things that have been kind of visiting, yeah, from some deep unconscious place. So yeah, but then other times something will happen that really annoys me. And then I'll sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song about this right now. So sometimes it's very, very fast, and other times it takes a while. So basically, I refine and redraft for a really long time. I definitely know when they're not done. That's the key. I'm like, no, this still isn't feeling like I've cracked what I call the optimum arrangement. And in my head, there is one. I know that's not the same for everyone, and I know it's not necessarily any kind of universal truth. But for me personally, I feel like it's when every part of the song like feels true, gives me this lift, and takes me to another place, like in its real authentic existence, can like really, I wouldn't even say the word persuasively transport you. I'd say like it just does. Like that's how it connects. That's the moment where I know the song is finished. It's when all of the components communicate with such sincerity that for me it's like every dimension of this now it's all aligned and it's all so true.
Moon sing, it is a cruel dream. Don't share the past if you won't share your heart. All that
I'd say working on The Disappearance of the Girl with Ross Cullum, who is a really legendary producer. That was a real moment. Just being around someone who had such an extraordinary ability to interpret music as art inspired me. And he's also one of the first people that really helped me trust my own instinct. I remember him saying, I think the strongest version of this album that's going to exist will be if all of the ideas come from you. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's so validating, because up until then, I'd worked with other people who didn't really think much of my vision, even though I'd brought my project to them, and they were kind of like, well, I think, it would be better if it were like this or like this. And it never sat right with me. I never actually released any of that material because I was kind of like, I don't know. So learning to trust my instincts really fully came from the experience of working with him. it was a great gift, yep. The track on my latest release, which perhaps symbolises the whole release and the creative process of that time, would be, I would say, Strange Ships, because that was from a fragment that revisited me for years. And funnily enough, it was about writer's block. The whole song was about writer's block, which is something that I don't often feel, but I felt for a while when I was really burnt out. And I went for a walk in nature and I saw all these like rocks kind of in the ground. And I thought to myself, a feeling of stasis and being unable to move forward is so much like what these rocks are basically experiencing. They're still, they're not moving, but in fact they are a part of a larger cycle, the rock cycle, and over time they are always moving into their next phase of development. And it really inspired me. I just thought, yeah, this is just a phase where I'm kind of in this feeling of stasis. And I went home and I wrote Strange Ships, which is basically alludes to the rock cycle. And yeah, I was really happy with that song because I felt like whilst having writer's block, I was able to create a song about the experience of paralysis, creative paralysis. So yeah, that was a breakthrough moment. So for the live shows, I really love to bring to life the kind of world of the album. So we'll often get lanterns or puppets made, and there'll be a kind of performance art element of it, sometimes dancers. So yeah, it will be a kind of multi-sensory experience, which people really, really seem to connect with. I think part of my sort of difficulty connecting with the larger industry has probably got a lot to do with my neurotype. I'm quite into understanding different neurotypes, and I've been diagnosed with ADHD. And so I think I've always felt like quite an outsider, but also absolutely love that space of just being able to freely do what I want without any kind of judgment. And yeah, it's been an empowering journey.